Hello everyone, today I am with Team Arora. I have Mr. Sam Tillen and Parveen Arora with us and today we will talk about the ongoing market situation when it comes to selling the houses in GTA specifically. So tell me, what is the situation like?
First of all, Pragya, thank you very much for having us over here. And as you asked regarding the selling in GTA market, right now, real estate market is very, very hot in GTA, right? And selling the property is not difficult at all. And buying the property is difficult at this time, but selling property is not a problem in GTA's market at this point.
And what is the reason for that, if you can elaborate?
Well, thank you first of all for having us here. The main reason remains the same as is discussed earlier also, it's demand and supply. The demand is so huge in GTA area especially because of all the immigrants, they want to settle in the main hubs, in the main cities, and that creates a huge demand in the housing market, but there is not enough supply in correspondence to the demand. So whenever there is more demand and less supply, the market is always going to heat up, prices are always going to go up, and bidding wars and fighting for property continues in the market.
And as you mentioned, the bidding war, is it a reason why the selling price go up in the housing sector?
Pragya, as Sam mentioned, supply and demand, that's the main factor in real estate industry, not only in real estate industry, I would say in each and every industry, because in real estate demand is so high compared to the supply in the market. So that's why bidding war is there. Lot of property, not lot of property, I will say almost all the properties in today's market are selling more than asking price. And there is more than one offer on each and every property. And when there is more than one buyer interested on each and every property, so everybody want to secure the property. The only way to secure the property is to give the higher price. And everybody is trying to push for the higher price. Some of the buyers, even they are stretching beyond even their limit to secure the property. Sometimes they are successful, sometimes even by stretching that, still they are not successful to secure the properties.
So is it safe to say that this is the best time to sell properties?
Best time to sell, Pragya, that's a very good question. The best time to sell property, definitely this is the best time. There is no second thought on that one. But the best time to sell the property is low inventory. Right now, inventory is low. Definitely that is there. But at the same time, it also depends on the seller's reason why they want to sell the property. If they have any plan to upsize, downsize, definitely that's the time they can consider that too. But sometimes, if they have this thought, oh, we want to sell the property, maybe down the road after some time we will buy the property, then I won't suggest those type of sellers, to sell the property at this time, because maybe they sell it now, later on it will be more difficult for them to secure any property in the market.
So is this the good news that you're giving, that this is an appropriate time to sell the properties? Is it equal for all kind of property, like condominiums and homes, like it is same for everything?
It's not same for all the properties right now, especially the low rise. There is very low inventory, and condominium, mid rise and high rise, still there is enough supply in the market. So on that side, there are not that many bidding wars or not that many multiple offers happening on the high rise and mid rise. But on low rise, definitely there is. And secondly, it depends on the area too. Some of the areas are very hot because there is very low supply, but some of the areas, they still have reasonable supply. So over there, the prices are still moderate, but most of the areas are still very aggressive because supply is very low.
Talking of the best time to sell, they say the best time to sell is when you don't have to sell. So, if you don't have to sell, you want to sell, this is the right time to sell.
I have one more question. I see these boards a lot, like, in front of the houses, the sold properties, sold over asking price.
Right.
And right now I can see many boards like that.
Right.
Is it really happening?
It is happening, Pragya, because one thing is there is a fair market value, and how we decide the fair market value. Fair market value you decide just by the comparison the properties sold in that neighborhood. And what is happening in today's market, most of the sellers, what they are doing, they are putting their properties below market value. So one reason is when the property is below market value, definitely it will sell over asking. But at the same time, properties are selling even above market value because there is no property sold in that price range recently. What is happening, let's say on one street, there is a 12500 square feet property. If that is sold for 1.7 million, most likely the next property on the same street will be sold higher than that. So there is very difficult to decide any fair market price for the property. So most of the properties, number one, those are underpriced, and secondly, those are selling above market value, or you can say what are the recent sales are, those are selling above those recent sales. So that's why a lot of properties you are seeing nowadays over asking price.
Okay, so like as you mentioned that it's a good time for selling, what are the points an average seller should keep in mind before selling the property?
There's many factors, Pragya, to consider. But if we were to summarize the whole process, there are three main factors that come into play when selling a property, or I should say, which is the very basics of selling a property. To get the maximum value of your property, first of all, it's presentation of the property that comes into play. How well is that property presented? Secondly is the marketing of that property. And third, of course, is the price of that property. These are three basic factors that will come into play when selling a property.
So whenever we are deciding or considering selling a property, should we always contact a listing agent, or should we do it ourselves?
Actually, the thing is this, anybody can sell the property, Pragya. The main question is this, who can get you the best price, right?
True.
Let's put it this way, in today's market, if you put the property for sale, definitely you will sell it, you know. And if you hire a realtor, the realtor, what realtor will does for you, they will give you the right information about the market. They will give you the right strategy about the market. You know, this is the time we should be going with multiple offer, or we should be just putting a price and negotiating the offer, because market never remains the same.
Yeah.
Market always fluctuates. Sometimes it's upward, sometimes it's downward, sometimes it's stable, right? So having a professional, you always gain end of the day. Selling property by yourself, you know, you may be able to sell it, but if you want the best results about your sale, it's always advisable to hire a professional for that.
And a point to be noted here is the stats show that only 2% of the properties are sold by the owners themselves. Rest 98% of the properties are sold by professional real estate agents. So it's up to the seller where they want to be, only 2% chance of selling their property or 98% of selling their property.
Yeah, so I think the knowledge is really important when you're dealing with selling and buying.
Let me share here. Let's say if the market is on upward side, the way market is right now, if you don't have the professional with you, you may be losing some money, you know, you will leaving money on the table when you are selling your property. And when the market is on downside, you may not be able to even sell the property, you know. So in both scenarios, having a professional is always advisable, because by yourself, sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, I would say, you won't be able to get the good results.
And the biggest thing that comes into play here is the trust factor. Because when a property owner is selling the property himself, the buyer does not know him, you know. Same thing, the seller does not know the buyer. They might have, interacted during this period, but when they both of them are working with professionals, there is a factor of trust. The listing agent has earned the trust of the seller, and the buying agent has earned the trust of the buyer. So that makes a deal happen very quickly, very effectively, and there are no hiccups in those deals. A lot of the times, even if the seller and the buyer, they reach a deal, a lot of the times there are chances that before closing it may fall apart. You know, so that trust factor in completing a sale is utmost importance.
I think it's a great point you just mentioned. And before we wrap up, what advice you would want to give to an average seller if I asked you this question, because you've been in this market for for a long time. So what advice you would want to give?
For the sellers, I would say, first of all, they have to see the reason. What's the reason they want to sell the property? Some of the sellers, they might want to cash the market, but if they want to cash the market, that's not a problem. They can cash it, but at the same time, if they are considering to buy something down the road, maybe after 1 year or 2 years, if they are considering that one, then they have to rethink that decision. If they are planning to buy something in GTA market, that may not be beneficial for them, because by the time they want to buy something, the price may not be the same what they are getting in today's market. Yes, if they want to move out of the GTA market, or if they have a plan, some people, they have a plan, we want to move out of Ontario, or some of them, they want to move out of a particular area and they want to go to the different area, there might be the scenarios where that will be beneficial for them. But if they want to buy in the GTA market and sell in the GTA market, I won't suggest that they sell at this time and buy some different time. If they want to do both transaction at the same time, that's perfectly fine. And the secondly, for the sellers, I will suggest definitely get some professional advice, because you may not be able to decide the right things for your property and the right strategy for your property when you are selling the property. So getting professional advice is also very important in today's market. And on the top of that, also put some, I would say, time and efforts on the presentation of property too, because if the property is well presentable, it is much easier to get the higher price. If it's not presentable, sometimes just by spending small amount on the house, like a fresh coat of paint, and some small renovation in the house, help them to get a much higher price compared to the investment what they are doing on the renovations.
The one thing I like to point out here is most sellers are already doing this currently. Always, take opinion from more than one real estate agent. Ask them, have a set of questions, ask each of them, and then select the one which you feel is the right fit for you. See, that you have to create that right fit, not only between the buyer and the seller, but at the same time, the right fit between the seller and the listing agent is very important. Communication is one big thing that brings the terms very close. A lot of times people hire an agent, they think that they hired a real estate agent, and it turns out they hired a secret agent because they don't hear back from them.
Oh. So all the viewers who are planning to sell their houses currently, or any property, one thing that I learned from this interview is always do your research, and if possible, always go for a listing agent or a realtor, because they can give you more information than you probably have currently.
In the last, Pragya, I would like to say one thing more, for all the viewers, if they do decide to sell their property, there is no harm to get the second opinion. They might be considering another realtor or another professional, but even if they want, they can call us, and there is no obligation. We will definitely give them the right advice according to their neighborhood and the market conditions, so that way they can make their well-informed decision.
Yeah, and so for all the viewers, you can see the screens, and at the bottom you can find Team Arora's contact information. If you have something in mind, if you want some consultation, if you want any kind of discussion, you can contact them. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.